Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the West Milton Council Workshop for November 26, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order, and then we'll have roll call. Do we have a clerk? Okay. All right.
Mr. Norman? Here. Mr. Horn?
Here.
Ms. Metz?
Yes, here.
Ms. Gregory?
Here.
Mr. Fogel?
Here.
Mr. Sodders?
Here.
Mayor Hurst?
I'm here. All right. First on the agenda is the Stillwater Crossings update.
Thank you.
Jason, good to be with you here tonight. I know you guys have been working on a number of things on the legislative side of things, and Jeff had shared the request to be here tonight and give you kind of an update. So I'll give you an update on some things, and then feel free to questions afterwards. We continue to do well on the single-family side with Ryan Homes on the south side. The sales have continued pace to the point that I think they will be through the available lots by the end of this calendar year.
Wow.
So they closed 2 a week ago, 1 this week. I got an email today that they want to close 2 more lots on Monday, so they continue to sell and then continue to close on homes. I got an update earlier today from Randall residents, which was, I think, a pretty positive update overall. They are 65% full in the main building, and that's just a little bit ahead of where I think they'd like to be. I've shared in the past, both with Jeff, but maybe with others, that the villas initially had not gone as quickly as they had hoped. But a week ago Saturday, they had an open house just for the villas, and that was their best attended villa event. They picked up a couple more leases, and so they'll be up to 4 residents in the villas. When they get to 8 is when we would pull the trigger on the next phase of construction for the villas. So the sales team there feels like it's turned the corner and they're getting more interest. They are talking to some people now that have not yet put down deposits, but they feel that that will be happening soon. And so my guess would be that in the spring of 2025, we would be starting on that next phase, which would be on the other side of Joyce Lane West. So it'd be another 16 units or 4 buildings. With regard to some of the commercial things that are planned for the south, Ron and I were talking on the way up, but prior to the meeting today, we are very aware that some of the things we had hoped would have already been in place are not yet in place. I think we've shared with you before, financially that's not the best for us because we have to make the payments for those commercial parcels regardless of whether there's an income producing property on it or not. We are absolutely still committed to those things. I could share as many details as you want on some of the ups and downs on those. Just for example, the Marketplace Express. We had shared with you before about Taco John's. Taco John's has pulled back on their Ohio footprint. Some stores that they had already further south than West Milton, they have closed. So they're not out of business, but they're not going to be opening new locations in Ohio at this point in time. Some of the regulations that have to do with how fuel tanks are installed have changed. So there's just a number of things that it seems from time to time like it's a step forward and then a step back that have delayed that from where we would like to be. But we are still working on both the Marketplace Express, the commercial buildings. We had a conversation earlier this week with Buckeye Burger. They are, I would say, closer to securing their financing for their startup part of it. And once we have that in hand, we would be ready to move forward. What I can tell you on the smaller of the 2 retail buildings that we had previously discussed with the council, we are, on the smaller building, we're like permit ready. We're ready to submit for permit. We've completed the engineering. The drawings are completely back from the architect. And so we're just waiting on Buckeye Burger to finish their their items, and then we can pull the trigger on that. But again, having stood here before and shared with you, I don't want to only paint a rosy picture and say, yeah, it'll be just another month around the corner, because we've been in that spot before where we felt it was imminent, and it turned out not to be. So again, I feel it's going in a good direction, and we're moving towards that. But I wouldn't want to be pinned down to a deadline tonight that I couldn't deliver on. But we're working on those things, and then as you know, we continue to work on things for the north side. One thing that I've been aware of, and again, you may have some questions, or we can talk a little bit further about it, is a timeline. Looking for a timeline of things that need to be approved, what that process looks like. We had an update call with the TIF and bond team earlier today. It's on Thursdays, but because of the holiday, we moved that up to today, and I think it worked well. I know at different points in time that timeline or outline of steps to happen has been shared, but we did get commitment that there will be an update to that timeline that we'll have early next week, and we'll share it with Jeff, and then ultimately with the council as far as where we stand, because some of those things updated based off of actions that you all took at the last meeting. So I think right now, based off of the call today, we are on track for probably an April closing of the bonds, and then able to break ground from there on the north side.
So on the marketplace, I think it's been over a year since you told us Taco John's had bowed out, and I thought you guys were talking about doing basically like food service that's at the one you guys currently run. Are you guys still looking for a different vendor to be in there?
Yes, we are looking at a different vendor. I think at this point what we've looked at is building the building as we presented it before. That end would be unfinished on the inside until that tenant is found, because we don't want to delay it any further than it has been. In the marketplace itself, on the two sides, we would have some food service options. We would continue to pursue those.
So with the Marketplace Express, is it still in the plans to be a gas station, car wash, and 2 fast food restaurants, or just now maybe one? What's your thought process in the plan with things that have changed?
I'll share with you a couple of things, and I'm not going to say these are big changes. Right now, if you were to look at the auditor's webpage, there is a parcel that is at the corner of Idians and 571. It's a little over 3 acres. The previous plan for Marketplace Express took about 2.5 of those 3.5 acres. And on those 2.5 acres, we were going to do the car wash and the convenience store building. And in the convenience store building, on one end where the Taco John's had been slated, we're still looking for somebody to go there. So that part hasn't changed. That other acre was one that, at one point I think we talked with the McDonald's locally if they were interested in moving, and that might be a swap potentially, because that might align with the master plan and what you're trying to do at 48 and 571. That 1 acre parcel still remains, or will remain once we subdivide. One of the changes that has occurred more recently, and I don't have the plans to show you yet, but as we've been in conversation on finalizing the plans, some of the consultants that we've spoken with have suggested, I'm going to say flip-flopping and moving the Marketplace Express to the intersection. So moving it right next to the entrance to the community, and leaving a 1 acre restaurant parcel on the corner rather than how it had previously been presented. But as far as the overall scope of the building, it hasn't changed. Square footage is the same, car wash is the same, number of pumps are the same, and we're looking at an offering that would be inside the convenience store, like a Chester's Chicken. That wouldn't be a sit-down, full-service type of restaurant, but have that food available for purchase, and you'd purchase it at the counter of the convenience store.
Okay, so the 2.5 acre parcel would be the gas station, car wash, marketplace,
Right.
some type of Chester chicken, and then the 1 acre parcel is open to where some other type of fast food could come in there.
Correct. And that plan was, that's unchanged from what we had previously presented. The only thing that's being discussed now is flipping the two of them.
Okay.
Like on that, again, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think it's 3.7 acres is what that parcel is today. That's one parcel today that would be subdivided into about 2.5 acres and 1.1 or 1.2 acres.
So what ultimately then is the main holdup with the gas station, car wash, and the marketplace? Because I know that's something that you said for probably a couple of
Right.
years that,
Right.
you know, you were thinking that that was imminent and was going to happen. So what's the real holdup with
Right.
with that? I know you
Um,
mentioned something about the changes with the gas tanks and different things, so I don't know how that all
Right.
comes into play.
I
with
mean, I will be honest with you and say that there are multiple things that so at some points we've been extremely focused on some of the retail buildings because we felt like we had people that were ready to go into those. And then we maybe backed off a little bit on the Marketplace Express, worked on some things for the north side, worked back on the Marketplace Express. We've worked on plans for the apartments on the north side. So there's no one single answer that is this alone is the reason why that hasn't taken place. It's been a number of factors. Securing the financing is the most difficult part, and there's a number of things that the banks want to see before they pull the trigger on it.
So I'm going to guess some of that probably relates to creating a market analysis of what it takes to keep a gas station like that busy.
Sure.
And I routinely hear us talk rooftops. Got to get more rooftops. I mean, is there a number the bank needs to see before they'll fund a project like that? Does there need to be a population density within a certain radius, a certain amount of traffic going by? What are their things that they're holding you to that they have to have in place to finance a project like that?
On say the commercial buildings, it was 60% leased on a given building. So at one point, we had come in and we had said, hey, we might have a 15,000 square foot building. Well, that's harder to get 60% leased than a smaller building. So on the commercial retail, that's why we looked at dividing that into two smaller buildings. With the space that we needed between, the total for the two was going to be a little less than 15,000. And with the square footage that Buckeye Burger has signed a letter of intent for, once their financing is good, then we have over 60% of that smaller building and we'd be ready to go. With respect to the convenience store, I don't know that there's a set number today that the bank has said, hey, you have to have this many rooftops on the south side. Part of that is because that's something that we intend to do ourselves.
But you still got to have a bank financing it, right?
We still have to have, for the construction, correct.
So they're going to want to see a business plan that,
Correct.
I just know McDonald's, you need a certain population density,
Right.
you got to have this, that, the other, or else they won't, you could have the deepest pockets in the world, they're not going to allow it,
Right.
but.
And we've had some conversations, again, you've probably heard Gold Star, Skyline, or some others. I mean, those are not closed doors as I'm standing here tonight, but they are not ready to pull the trigger just yet. They do have some metrics. One of the things that they've said is having that convenience store open, that would be a draw or a pull to the location, which ultimately helps them. So it definitely is one of those things, kind of like if you can get the first one to fall, then the others come more easily behind it. But again, as I shared before, I'm aware that I've been here before you before and said, I feel like we're just a little bit of ways from starting, and so I don't want to convey the same thing and to our detriment. Like I said, we are committed. We're continuing to work on those fronts, but I don't want to tell you tonight some pie in the sky number that it'll be starting in April, and then it doesn't start in April, and you're asking the same question again.
When you mentioned the bonds closing on the north side, I was just very dismayed to hear that the bonds on the north side weren't including commercial, and was kind of honestly taken back that we found out in the way that we found out. So the commercial on the north side will not be done at the same time as the infrastructure to the housing development?
So I did see some emails that came across. Jeff had shared those emails. I'll tell you my understanding of how the north side is taking place and where that might be a little bit different from the south side. So on the south side, all of the commercial was centered around the entrance. It's all what is along the front. So really to kind of get back to the single family and to Randall residents, all of those roads had to be put in, and so when they were putting in the roads, they put in the infrastructure. In the 2018-2019 timeframe, when those were going to closing, when those bonds were getting ready to close, the bond advisors and the folks that put all of that together were able to calculate and base off of Randall having signed their portion, Premier Health having signed for their parcel, and then Ron and myself for the commercial parcels. There was, of course, the agreement on the single family, but you never know exactly how quickly those will sell. I mean, we had an idea, but on the south side, that's what was taken into account, and it was based off of not having, when we signed in 2019, Randall didn't have a loan that day to start their building. We obviously didn't have a loan to start the couple things. They went off of our guarantee of those payments, and we've continued to make those payments. On the north side, the apartments are considered commercial, and those go in phase one. And so it's kind of everything west of the entrance, as outlined, that was going to go in. Some of the infrastructure that goes in with phase one absolutely serves the future commercial. So all of the sewer and water connections are in the west portion of the property, which gets developed in phase one. What the bond folks were not doing this time is counting revenue or income from commercial parcels that there is nobody committed to yet. And given that we're committed to the ones on the south side, we were unwilling on our own to commit to, something that might be a future grocery store or pharmacy or restaurant on the north side. If we had users for those, I think they would absolutely have counted that income now. But since we don't, they weren't doing that.
So in the email exchange, I believe it was shared that would just go on the developer, you guys on?
Correct.
On funding that. And the way I remember us talking about the north side clear back on planning board was that the only way we could do it is this way and with this, and this seems very different than the way that was said this is the only way we can do it. And saying that you had to have the commercial, and now we're talking about not having commercial at possibly at a much later date, if at all, or that being put back on your guys' pockets to put in.
Well, so I guess a couple of things. With respect to the, not being commercial at all, keep in mind that the zoning for the north side is as presented to you, and the only way it can change is with your approval. So that would be considered a major change and would have to come back before you if we said, well, we don't want to build these other commercial buildings, we'd have to do something else. I think the intent is still that that's what it would be.
I'm not concerned about the zoning. I'm concerned about how it worked for the city, because we're going to take responsibility for water, sewer, road, policing, fire, and all that for years to come, and there's taxes abated from us as well, isn't there, Jeff?
Yeah.
And it's substantial. So part of the way it worked for us was, and the way I remember it in the meetings, was that we were counting on commercial. We were counting on payroll taxes and different things like that. And they talked about every builder that comes in to do every stitch of plumbing, every nail pound is going to have a W-2 with the city. And so there were things that have to happen for us to take care of that property till the abatements are done, until we get property tax as well. And part of that was counting on the commercial to be, viable and driving some of our economic growth and change. And, the big picture that we all shared in rosiness is, some of that has to come to fruition to keep working. And when I hear that the bonds the bond company is not comfortable enough with the commercial development on the south to finance their bonds on the north, and that being part of the big overall picture, that makes me worry more than I'd like to.
Can I ask a question here that may help?
Sure.
Could you tell us what your approach is now, or what would be different now without the commercial in the bonds, as opposed to before, when you thought or assumed that they would be, perhaps? So what would be different today, knowing now that you're not getting bonds included for the commercial, as opposed to if you did?
Right.
What would be the difference in the approach?
Let me give you just some round numbers, and again, I think we could probably at some point get the spreadsheets out and share down to the penny, but rough numbers to do what we're talking about in phase one on the north side is $9 million. And the bonds, as they stand today, generate about 5.8. And so what we've talked about and what we're working on is an additional bond. So this isn't just, money that we're putting up when the time comes. We have to put it up front. We would buy an additional bond that would cover that balance. The entrance that goes in and the main road on the north side of the community, that will serve the apartments, the single family, and it will serve the future commercial, that is planned. So I guess the difference here is we still have to do that up front, but in absent of people that are saying, hey, we're ready to go on that commercial part, we can't just go with us saying, hey, we're going to do it at some point. So I guess we're not really changing, or we're not talking about changing.
That's what I'm taking from what you're saying. So
Right.
the second bond, does it go through the same process, the same Port Authority?
It's not issued by the Port Authority,
Okay,
no.
so-
So we have to just have those funds
Okay.
up front.
So that'd be on you to do that.
Correct.
And that's the difference. Whereas
Right.
if they had included commercial, the bond would have been
Right.
9 million or higher,
Right.
would have covered all.
Now, I will say that those funds get added to the total. So we have a quote. I mean, the $9 million is based off of the bids that we have for the approved plans that you have already seen. So we took those plans that were submitted to the city, we got those bid out. Milcon is who we had opted to go with. And so Milcon's quote for that work in that phase is the $9 million. Once that additional bond is available, it's not like I'm the one deciding, hey, now I release the funds, they get added to, and that process is the one that still has all of the oversight, just like the bond funds that come through the port.
And do you foresee any difficulty in securing that additional bond?
I mean, based off of the conversations we've had thus far, I don't, but that's what, I mean, we're working on that simultaneously, the idea being that we wouldn't want everything to hit at the same time.
And that's all for the infrastructure for the start of everything on the north side,
Correct,
the 9 million.
correct,
And the bonds generate 5.8, so you have to come up with the difference of the 3.2.
correct. Right. Now, the other, I guess, just the other thing I would ask or, make a comment, because Don, I do understand your question. Certainly the intent here is not to be a burden on the village with anything, and I mean, if there are specifics you would point to that we could maybe address, and I don't mean here tonight, but that we could work on, because the streets haven't been turned over, we're taking care of the snow plowing. The bush hogging and the things, which we admittedly did have some challenges as the spring started this year. I think we've now got folks locally that will take care of that, but
I heard Kenny came in and bailed that for you.
he did, well, on the north side, he absolutely did. He absolutely did.
Winner, winner.
Right. But on the south side, those parcels that are facing the highway, we want those to be taken care of as well. And, hopefully there's not too much craziness going on vacant lots that the policing is too cumbersome. But yeah, I do understand what you're saying. It's like the income is kind of the overall picture, but hopefully we're not being an undue burden on the things that haven't just started yet.
Some of the other things that have changed on our perspective compared to the original development is we're now I think we were in it for a pump station that was reimbursed when the bonds came out. But now we're also talking a water tower under the river, water line to and eventually back from, right, Jeff? Would be the goal?
If that was
Complete the loop?
Developed and there were more development to the north, yes.
So, compared to the original burden on the city, so to speak, we're now talking what totals up to, millions of dollars in money that the city will be finding ways to fund through grants or whatever we can, obviously, to take the burden off ourselves. But it's just a whole different set of things. And then when you count on the commercial growth for our community, if that doesn't come along, that is a big worry for me, especially seeing how it's struggled so far on the south side. And to hear some things too, like we were under the impression some things were under contract, and then now we're using the term letter of intent versus contract. And I myself am just not versed on that. That's not the world I work in every day. So some of the things that I thought were a little more firmed up in stuff apparently wasn't as firm as I thought. Now that could just be on me and my understanding. I'm certainly not trying to say somebody misrepresented it or anything like that, but it worries me. I know I need to learn more. I know we need to have more conversations
Sure.
with you guys. You talked about the bush hogging. So if the commercial is real slow to go, now that we've got most of that development done, who is going to care for the land? How often is it going to get mowed? How's that upkeep going to be done so that the people moving into the villas and looking back across those empty fields, that they be taken care of and look nice until that commercial does come along on the south side? I kind of want to hear more stuff about stuff like that
Sure.
that firms up the complete picture and just feel more comfortable about all of it moving forward.
I will say with regard to the letter of intent, certainly the intent was never to mislead on how firm or not firm. I can tell you from conversations with Scott from Buckeye Burger, he absolutely wants to get in there, and he's been working on his end to get things going. That's been positive movement here recently with him and his financing. I'm not in all of those conversations because that's his business, not mine, but we want to help him where we can because his success contributes to our success and ultimately the villages.
And that would be in the strip mall adjacent to the marketplace, right?
On the other side of the entrance, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah, facing the highway.
And how many other commercial spots would be in that building?
Right. Some of it would depend on what square footage each of those tenants opted to take. But the smaller building is around 7,500 and the larger building was going to be, 8,000, 8,500, somewhere in that, that general frame. So if people only need 1,500, you can get more in than if they each need 3,000. One of the challenges is, we've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people. And I mean, I can tell you what some of those are. Part of how this goes is you keep reaching out to a bunch of different people, and then when one finally pulls the trigger, then you go on that one, and you have kind of narrowed down your available space, and you're focusing on some others. At one point, we were pretty close with Domino's for a location here, and ultimately the franchisee of that decided it wasn't like he went somewhere else in West Milton. He opted for a different location. Will he be back? Perhaps. I don't want to guarantee, but there are certainly things that we have spent time and effort on that haven't worked out the way we've wanted, but that doesn't mean we're not, still working on it.
So those two commercial buildings, one's 7,500 square feet, the other one's somewhere between 8,000 and 8,500. The only commitment that you have right now on contract with someone wanting to go into, and I don't know, I'm assuming
It'd be the smaller of the two.
Buckeyes than
Yeah.
the smaller. How much square footage is going to be open for other,
In that first building, I think he's taking up approximately 3,500.
okay, so you'll have another 4,000 that,
Yeah.
do you have any
Well, so that
interest?
was- we've absolutely had discussions with people on that, but as I stand here tonight, I don't have a signed contract or letter of intent on it.
Okay, because I know you talked to a bank.
Right.
And there was a coffee shop at one time, and you mentioned the Gold Star and the Skyline. So the other one that is a little bit bigger, is there anything in the works for that one as well? Or at the present moment, you're just focusing on the smaller one right now?
We're just focusing on the smaller of the two right now, again, get that to go. And that was the reason for splitting it up from, I think if you looked at some of the original documents, it was one larger building.
Right.
And it would just be tougher, because then if Buckeye Burger goes, then we get that building going. And I will say that part of the conversation with any of these folks, right, the question they ask is, well, when is this going to happen? For some of the smaller folks, it's dependent on a critical mass. So I might have somebody who wants something that's 1,000 square feet that would be ready to go today, but alone, they don't get us to the finish line. So it's those conversations back and forth with folks.
So with the north side not being part of the bonds for the infrastructure, you guys are the property owners now. What would happen if things just don't move along and get there to where there is commercial there? Does that leave you guys hanging?
Well, right now what we're doing is we're using income and profits from other aspects of our business to take care of the things while we're waiting for these to come online. Those other things are going well at the moment, so I don't, foresee a problem. But, there's a couple different things. It's like what I hear you say, and I understand you're saying you have concerns. I have concerns as well, but I'm still committed to what we're doing. This isn't we're teetering on the edge of do we do it or not. We're still wanting to move forward. Absolutely, it has not gone the way we wanted. We'd like to already be in business and, be checking on our staff out there rather than, telling you we think it's just a few more months down the road.
And it's not lost on me that you guys taking a chance to come up here and do the south side or the north side or any of this, and that you guys didn't beat out 25 other developers beating down our door to do this. That is absolutely not lost on me. So don't take my fears and anxieties of what could go wrong as a personal,
You each have a
thing
role
towards
as well,
to
and
you
I
guys. It's
respect that.
just concern of our community at large and all the
think I-
pieces coming together for us to be able to do our part of it too.
I think I'd have similar questions if our spots were reversed.
When you mentioned the marketplace and you said people like Skyline or Gold Star, like they would be more on board if the marketplace gas station
Correct.
was under construction or coming. So knowing that piece is on you guys, does that motivate you to
Absolutely.
be like, let's get this done because it
Right.
will bring these
Right.
people?
So, just in a kind of a background, things that we've done here more recently is we have been back to folks that know all the ins and outs of convenience stores. And they have been working on all of the numbers for us. I mean, they're doing some of that now, because we do want to get that going. But again, like I said, I'm very aware that, we've worked on things before and then it doesn't pan out quite like we want. So we are actively working on that now. The tanks, the fuel center, the car wash, the interior. I mean, we've reached out to folks that do the design on the insides of these, of convenience stores. There's a whole science to that, which I won't pretend that I understand all the ins and outs of. That's why you hire other people to do it. But we're at that stage of the process.
Do you know what the thought was of moving it to the entrance versus on the corner?
Mhm.
I would think 2 entrances versus,
So what they said was, because ultimately there's to be a light there. They said convenience is in the name. You want it to be super convenient. You want people to be able to pull in and not have to wait for cars. And if there's 2 turn lanes or people going in and out different directions, if they can just go there to the light, that would be, they thought, the best. I mean, we're talking about all the different fuel products to be offered. Obviously, there are, rural,
Gotta have diesel.
Need, right. But for, also all the different things. So the mix here is different than if you're just off 75. I mean, we're down to that level of detail on all of the things, but it all takes time.
Is there like an updated site plan? Or
For that,
for like the commercial buildings?
on the south side,
Yeah.
there is. Yeah, and I can share that with Jeff and then get that to you.
Okay.
Yeah, if we could see that, that would be great. So I have a couple other questions. So I believe the talk still has been, there's got to be a certain amount of rooftops. There's got to be some commercial before the premier health care facility goes in as well.
Correct.
That's still the same, nothing's changed. What's the delay with them
With them.
moving forward? Is that, and then, some integral parts here as
Right.
well with, our health services and so
Right.
forth.
The way that was originally written was, they didn't have to do anything until we had reached, I don't know if it was 75% on the south side, which we're probably close to that. I know part of it is finding a doctor to go in. I know, at points in the past, they said they didn't want to compete with Doc Ginn in town because he was part of their network, and if he didn't want to go, they weren't going to compete with him directly. And I haven't talked to them recently enough to know kind of the status of things there. Jeff, I don't know how much you've shared about conversations with the YMCA.
Not much lately.
Yeah. I mean, I think the last meeting that we had with them was one of the more positive ones. And again, those things are, they take a lot of time to come to fruition. So just one thing I'll share on that. And again, this is no commitment on our part or Premier's part, but there are other locations where Premier actually has their office inside of Y. And so the potential, I think, exists that if that was something that would help get a Y going, then we would work with some kind of, with them on some kind of swap.
But that would be, that's on the
side.
north side, not the
North side
south side.
commercial, correct.
Okay.
or I know the talk of the doctor do we know, is it a primary care office? Are they wanting to do an urgent care?
I think it was, again, I don't want to speak for Premier, but I think based off of the design of the building, it was not urgent care, it was primary care, or maybe some specialists that could come in from time to time, have that space to do some different things.
Yeah, so just think about a lot of places that I'm sure we all go, the doctors travel,
Sure.
you see them in Troy, you see them in Kettering,
Right,
so.
yeah, they're here Wednesdays and Thursdays or something like that, right?
So if there was a spot that brought in a cardiologist, brought in pulmonary, whoever, but not that it was a primary care. I don't know what their thought is.
I have a couple other questions with
Sure.
the south side. So with the villas, you talked about the first phase being complete, and there's 4 villas that are occupied right now. And I think there's
2 that are occupied today, and they have 2 signed leases that move in December.
Okay.
So that will be their 4, but from what I understood, they were in conversation with a couple more folks. For the way I understand it for Randall is they take a deposit, and then that's their, kind of their trigger. And that's when they reach out to us and say, hey, a unit, we need such and such unit ready by this date.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's ultimately 4 that's going to be occupied, and there's going to be 4 that's still going to be open, because there's 8 that are
There
available
will
now?
be- No, the first phase was 16.
Oh, 16.
And the way that the financing is set up for that, like that loan is already in place, but the trigger, because it's done in phases, is 50% of each phase, and then in total moving forward. So right now they have 16 units. They've got 4 spoken for. When they have 8 spoken for, the next
Then you'll
phase
go
starts.
on the next phase.
And then that'll be 32 units total. When they have 16 spoken for, they would move on from there.
And I forget, how many phases are there with that?
5 total.
5 total.
Yeah, and it's, because it doesn't work out exactly even, it's 4 sets of 4 buildings, or 4 sets of 16 units, and the 5th phase is 20 units.
5th phase is 20?
Yeah, to get to 84 total.
Okay. Since you talked to Randall residents and they're roughly 65% occupied, can you tell me, I know when we originally talked about this with the Randall residents, when we started working this from the get-go, when Manager Klein was here, that, it was going to be larger. I think it was originally talked, we were going to be at like 150 beds, but it's 60 beds right now for assisted living and 18 for memory care. So there's 78, I think.
Yeah.
So how many employees are currently employed by Randall residents, that are employed up there
Right.
currently? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm sure I could get those numbers for you.
Okay. I was just curious if you knew that or not.
I think why Scott's asking that is because when we justified all this, we looked at the commercial and the payroll tax coming to the city and how many that, it was kind of billed as it was going to be the largest employer in the community. And again, it just goes into that whole picture of what made it a good opportunity for the village moving forward was the employees. We have so little commercial in this town. We've always been a bedroom community, and we were really trying to get out of the mold of a bedroom community. And again, it goes back to my biggest fear is we end up creating more bedroom community and less commercial or other businesses in the community, which is supposed to counterbalance that and kind of change that aspect for the community.
Yep, I do understand, and like I said, since I don't know, I don't want to give you incorrect information, but I'll certainly ask that question.
The last question I have on the south side is about moving the dirt. I know that there's a considerable amount of dirt that needs to be moved from the south side to the north side.
Right.
And there's some issues with the funding with that. Can you give us an update? Because I know ultimately from when I went over there and talked to the folks at Ryan Homes, that dirt needs to be moved before they can sell those properties back there.
Right.
And get those going for the home builds.
Right.
So
I think they have approximately 15 lots that they have internally put on hold. I mean, they don't close on a lot with us until they're about ready to start. So they would write a contract, on a home, and then they have their schedule. A couple weeks later, they would close on that home site. So they are not even marketing those home sites because they know if they did sell them, they couldn't start them until the dirt's moved. The cost to move the dirt is approximately $700,000, and that is in that $9 million that I shared with you earlier. The plan for that dirt, everybody knows about the rock. We also have the gas line that runs east to west on the north property.
Yep.
And there are stipulations from Vectren as far as how close you can be to that. So we actually need the dirt on, it's not, yes, we do need to get rid of it on the south side, but we also have it worked into the engineering plans for the north side. We actually need it so that the areas that need to be raised up can be raised up. Part of it will be fill for the ponds that are currently there. The ponds get relocated towards the west end of the property. And so once once that work happens, or once the bond's closed, then that's one of the first things to take place.
So there's no money available at this point on the south side to work that. It's all contingent on what happens with the north side to be able to get that moved over there, because it's ultimately, that dirt is needed on the north side.
Correct.
For part of that infrastructure process.
Correct.
And I was told that I believe you have to create a separate road as well that will go across 571 to move that dirt. Is that correct?
So one of the plans that had been discussed, and have to is maybe not the right word, but just we thought this might be best. There is a green space that exists between the backs of some of the Ryan homes and Iddings. So there's kind of a green space up through there.
On the other side of the mound?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so one of the thoughts would be that it would be, overall a better choice if we created a path through that green space, because if we do, we can use what they call the off-road trucks, the bigger trucks that can haul more per load. They would have to put a flagger out at 571, that would be required, and that's how they would get across 571. The alternative is putting it in over-the-road trucks and having several trucks go up and down Iddings, which already isn't in the best shape.
I don't think it can handle it.
Right, well, right, it would have to be probably replaced from that portion of the community north. With regard to where we would cross 571, I think the thought was that there would probably be some impact to the edges of the road, where we crossed, because again, those trucks are big and heavy, but that would be done in an area where the road gets widened both for the signal and the turn lanes, so that we're not redoing stuff. We're not breaking something and then having to fix it. We're doing it in an area that's getting replaced anyway. And that's part of the reason for moving the dirt first.
Okay.
Now, we generously calling that dirt. What percentage of dirt versus rock do you think that is?
Oh yeah, I know. Especially if you look at that one end of the pile, it's pretty rocky.
And do you guys plan on doing what you guys creatively did on the south side, which was you guys brought in basically
Like a rock crusher?
yeah, and kind of ground your own substrate there, didn't you?
Yeah, I think that is the intent. The biggest generator on the north side will be the same as what it was on the south side, which is when we do the sewer, and they bring in that machine to trench, and they're really down in the rock at that point. But I do believe that is the plan.
So they could actually use some of the
Correct.
stone from the south side to...
They could. They would have to screen some of that to get the dirt out. You don't just want to throw it as is directly into the crusher, is my understanding. But I do think that some of it is mostly rock. And if anybody needs landscape rocks, just give me a call and I'll be out there to help.
Don't hurt yourself getting it, right?
Right.
All right.
All you can take.
Thank you.
I have two final questions on the south side, so sorry about that. So with the moving of the dirt and the rock, what's the timeline that it's going to take to move that? Do you have a projected timeline of
As far as
that?
how long would it take?
How long would it take? Because you're going to have that.
I think from when they start, again, I had to double check with Milton, but I think it was 2 to 3 months.
Okay. And then the last thing I had, and nothing's been updated for a bit with that, I know that you're working with Miami Valley Lighting with the street lights out in the south side. Any update with that
Yeah,
status?
so, and again, I believe Jeff has the copy, but that check for the light fixtures has already cleared the bank. So Miami Valley Lighting has that, the light fixtures are ordered, the contract you guys signed, we signed, it's back to them. And so we're on the clock. I can call Robin from Miami Valley and ask for an update. But we are on there. Like once that comes in and comes up, they're doing it. And that's all underground installation that Miami Valley Lighting will handle, like with their contractors.
Okay.
And that includes the locations that were requested to be added, based off of that plan that we submitted. I think the council had requested some in cul-de-sacs that weren't, on what we had originally submitted, but what we sent to Miami Valley Lighting does have those.
All right. Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Jason. It
Yeah.
seems like
Thank you.
we think of lots of questions and we wonder and all that, but you
Yeah.
do a great job when you come here and
Appreciate it. Yeah, happy to be
answer
here.
every question, and we appreciate it very much.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Thanks so much.
one more.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Nope, sorry, not approved. We already thanked you.
We talked about the schedule of the remaining documentation that needs to be put into place for the north side.
That's this
Resolutions,
copy.
what have, that's,
That's at your desk, that's as of today, all
Okay.
4 different pieces.
wonderful.
And I think that's what would be updated by early next week, just to make sure it reflects the most recent activity.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have a happy Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
both of you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is the 571 trail lighting.
Thank you, Mayor. You have, I believe everyone got a copy of some potential light fixtures. We have a gentleman from Choice One, just to bring everyone up on the same page. When we originally submitted the application for the trail on 571, we had always included lighting in the project. But at that time, based on the financial, the cost of the project, I intended to do it as a second phase to get the trail built and then the lights to come in later. That was not consistent with ODOT, how we wanted it handled, so they weren't willing to do that. So we continued to work on coming up with options, and we were able to find a program that ODOT will fund the costs of doing the lighting at the same time we build the trail. So at this point, this is kind of our last opportunity to make changes. For example, in the original project, because of budget costs, we had cut all but the 3 lights on the bridge. We were going to start there to begin with. Now we'll have the opportunity to put lighting all the way from Iddings down to the intersection of 571 and 48. We looked at the base lights because we were paying for them. Now we're going to look at nicer lights. And Mr. Herron reviewed this and has some suggestions. He couldn't be here tonight, but wanted you to take a look at it. Aaron will go over the details, but we're hoping to get, our plan is to get all the bells and whistles. So they'll be nice. They'll have the ability to plug in decorations. They'll have some pieces to put up flags and to put up banners. So take a look at that, and we need to submit this as soon as possible, probably later this week. We'll be working with Choice One to get a submission. And I believe in your copy, you have a proposal budget that shows the cost of the street lights if we go these nicer fixtures. And I guess I should ask, this number that Kay had, that doesn't include the upgraded fixtures, or does it?
The estimate that we supplied to you is including the top of the
Yeah,
line.
that's what I thought. Okay, good.
Every aesthetic.
Just wanted to make sure. So the estimated cost of just the street lighting is now approximately $880,000. And the program that ODOT has made available will pay 100% of the cost.
Jeff, you're just speaking warm words to my heart there.
We don't have to pay for these lights.
ODOT.
That's correct.
We will be mindful of ODOT's money because that's our money too.
That's right.
As
Correct.
taxpayers.
You have some of your money.
But, yeah.
Don't count them until they're installed.
Right.
So this is the plan as of now. It's been changed before, but Aaron can go over the details, and we'll go from there.
Hey, Jeff, I don't think we got that price sheet.
Yeah.
That it showed
Oh,
me
you
earlier.
did not? Pass that down. I'm sorry. I thought everybody had a copy of that.
And because you're a new face and new to here, we do have law enforcement here to actually physically limit Scott's questions. Should it come down
Where
to
was he a
that.
minute ago?
Now you say that.
So seriously, we know them. You're new, we'll try to be nice.
Try, yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm Brad Walter-Bush. I'm with Choice One. So to go over a couple different things, the baseline, if you guys flip to the back of the second page, where we're at with the current original design is, if you see the bottom left, It says the standard davit pole. So we're planning to do that because it looks a little more decorative, painted black. If you go to the back of the second page, at the very bottom left.
This one?
Yep. So,
Sorry, can you say that again?
yeah. So is everyone on the back of the second? Yeah. So bottom left, it says standard davit pole.
Yeah.
If you recall, the last time I was here, we talked about which baseline pole you wanted to do. So that was the pole that we selected. That's what we have with conventional lighting. Like Jeff said, we have funding now, or we're potentially going to apply for funding this week or early next, depending on when we get the review back. But we're ready to submit on that. So we wanted to include decorative or aesthetic features like teardrop lighting. We looked into, so if you look at the top page, that's teardrop lighting. So we pretty well eliminated post-op lighting with the width of the corridor and the high speed. We really can't do like the acorn or the lantern fixtures that you would typically see in a downtown area. These fixtures act similar to a conventional like Cobra headlight that you see a lot of times, but they have decorative features. So ODOT only allows, if you look at the very top row, you'll see teardrop, slightly less, a half circle, and then the next one is a sag glass and a flat glass. So ODOT only allows those two fixtures to be part of their protocol. That's the two fixtures that and that's based off of glare ratio. So when you're driving down the road and you're driving down, if you ever see kind of like the light streaks, that's why they only approve that. So
Starbursting, I think they call it.
yeah, I guess that too. I haven't heard that before, but
Well, it's like the little rays that you see
yeah.
coming, they
Yeah.
call it
Yeah.
starburst effect in your visual fields, I think.
yeah, so we're trying to eliminate that. So we would recommend doing that. Now, if you guys like the look of the teardrop, that's something we can include. So I don't know if you guys have any opinions of anything in the area, what type of decorative features you like to include.
So you're saying those two are the two that ODOT approves?
Yep, that's acceptable.
Which of these two is easier to maintain and cheaper to maintain?
To maintain, the maintenance would be the same. If it goes out, you're gonna have to replace it. It's the same driver, same fixture, just different optics. So it's not gonna be any difference in maintenance.
Here's what I would suggest is once we're done, you make your notes and then send me emails and I'll compile your opinions and then come up with this is what we think we're going to go with, if that's all right, before I submit it to choice one, if that's okay.
That sounds great.
So of all these, basically, these two?
Yes.
Up this row, this row?
So there's other fixtures or other features I'll get into that we can add. So they have the finial, which is not on that sheet. It's on a future sheet. But then they also have the shades. So that's what the next two rows are. So if you can select one or two, preferably three, and then rank it, because we're just trying to see what works. We got to make sure that the manufacturer can supply that shade with this fixture. So we're just trying to get an idea of what you guys want. So any of these options, if we can get kind of a ranked list of 2 to 3, that would be preferred. And if you guys have anything in mind that look like these in the area, I know we've installed the flat lens and sag glass lens in Riverside and Bluffton. Bluffton has the standard davit and the sag glass lens. It doesn't have any shading or it actually did have finial attachments to it, so that's a good example. The Riverside, if you go to the back of the first page, this one, that is a snipped image from Riverside's project. That's a mono-arm pole, so it'll look very similar, just the swooping arm rather than a single mono arm.
That's by the base.
That's the entrance.
That's by the base, yeah.
Yeah, right by the base, yeah.
Air
To the
Force
entrance to the
Museum.
Air Force Museum, isn't it?
Yeah, yep.
I pass that every day.
So you're saying that picture is which one of these?
So these,
The Riverside one is which one on the paper?
so that one would be most similar to third row Halbrook.
The third one, too?
Actually, the fifth one, the
Oh,
third one's
just
Halbrook
Halbrook.
extended, so
Got
it's
it.
just a slightly extended shade.
Okay.
Have you noticed them when you went by before, Scott? Those lights? I mean, I know it's kind of silly to ask, but, because we really don't normally notice, but,
Well, because I'm going in the daylight, so I
Yeah,
don't.
oh, okay.
Yeah. so
Yeah. Oh,
I'm not
darn.
seeing them lit, but I'm going to do that now, this weekend.
cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
So that's a good thing to take into consideration. I know we talked about doing the davit, if you guys wanted to do a more decorative arm. I mean, a lot of the times, people don't notice that right away, and with the corridor being a faster corridor, 45, 50 miles per hour, you may not see that. And we did, I talked to Jeff a little bit about it before the meeting, but we did look into doing a decorative base, so like the clamshell, with the high speed and with meeting clear zone for that, we really can't do a decorative base because it's a rigid structure. We'd have to be about between 25 feet away from the edge of the travel lane. So in some areas, we're getting into that rock wall, and then we're also in the proposed ditch. So moving that around and getting in that rock wall, it's not really feasible. So we still have to stay with the transformer base, as I showed on that bottom row.
When we get traffic light out there and all that, it won't stay, by the time you stop everybody out there, have a traffic light, it won't be 45 or 50.
No, we'll
From
have to
there.
do a traffic study, and our intent's to be to lower the speed limit. but we'll
It'll
have
be
to go back to-
35,
I would
most
hope.
likely.
I would hope.
Yeah.
So slow enough to get some style.
Well, it's going to be a walking path too. so-
Yes, yeah, so, yeah.
Well, I'm
So
thinking
unfortunately-
like, in my mind, like, I'm so short, I don't see streetlights, but I also know like, there are places that have nicer looking ones.
Yeah.
And it might be nice to have one that looks nicer. However, I'm much better at like numbers than picking out design things. So,
So I think we can spruce it up with the banner arms and flagpole holders, so it does give that aesthetic appealing look without having the decorative cost.
For what it's worth, I think Ben, Lene, and I like this one.
I love that. I think that's really pretty. I would be totally okay with that. It's pretty.
Just saying,
Which one?
on the front.
Okay.
I'm
And I wasn't sure if he said we could do that one or not. Is that one that,
Yeah, we
I'm
can-
on, I think
we'll
that's
have to
really
look into
pretty.
it, and that's what I mentioned is,
Okay.
I would like to have,
that's a close
like a
view.
top 2 to 3.
Yeah, we'll get
If
you
we
to
do
it.
these decorative arms, because they are limited to a certain length, so every option we're gonna have to analyze, and if it can only go 4 feet arm length, I gotta make sure that we get light all the way across the road.
So
Seems like we're going to need a pared down,
is there,
you know, offering here to choose from.
like, is there a way you can give us 3 options of the completed thing and say, here's your choices? That might be.
I can,
And I'm only
Yeah.
speaking for myself, but that,
No, I
like, for
agree.
me, would probably be easiest for
Totally agree.
you.
staff can work with him and we'll do that.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
We'll narrow it
Although the
down.
one you guys have picked, I do think looks elegant.
I think it's really pretty. I like
do.
it.
And I think we want to have the banner arms, so we can put the banners on it, and
Yeah.
also the flag holders.
Nicer than.
So we're going to do the full.
Probably
every
put
option we
banners
can
on
do.
both sides, couldn't you?
Yes, we'll have banners on
And-
both sides, potential.
I think one of the
I think
most
that's cute.
dramatic views in our community is coming in and out of town
Yes.
on that incline
Yes.
change from in town on 571 going out, and same thing out coming down in. I mean, so I think it's worth looking nice.
Electrical outlets, so we could decorate them in the winter. Imagine that entire line with flags or banners or Christmas decorations that are coming in from the west.
How many will it be from beginning of the trail to the end? I know there was
You know
three
that?
supposed to be on the bridge.
Yeah, but, and again, we originally didn't have any past the bridge. Now we're gonna go all the way to
Right,
571, 41. Do you know how
So
many
I think
total?
the total length, there's 22 poles.
22.
So all the way from McDonald's intersection
Yeah,
to the intersection of Richland.
We're gonna do it right.
We also like this one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping, if you could, so the first sheet you like, and then.
Yeah, I like this brick building one.
All right, you send it to
Really
me,
pretty.
send it to me, I'll come up with 3, and we'll get them to him. Is that all right?
Sounds
Can we
great.
just like the picture?
Yeah.
I think this is great. Of these pictures, which ones do we like? I like that. Pretty.
I don't like the blue one on that page.
I don't either.
I can tell you
It's
which
really-
one I don't like.
I like it for
And
like
sir,
a park.
once this goes,
Yeah, I really
we
like
go
the
through
green one. I
with
think it's adorable.
ODOT and it gets approved, what's the timeline for when this would all?
One of the keys to this project is to get this funding, we have to stick with the timeline we'd already established. We can't acquire any additional right-of-way, and it has to be constructed on the timeline. And they're on their second submittal,
Third.
ready for the third.
Yeah.
So it's going to get built at the same time as the trail, which is potentially starting next year, or the beginning of the year after that.
So you need stuff from us to
Fast.
you
Fast,
Quick.
yeah.
by what day this week?
I would ask
Or
for
beginning of
it.
next week?
There are no more
I
days
would
this
ask-
week.
I would
Yeah.
ask for it
I'm working tomorrow, I'm working Friday.
There's
I would
only
ask for
one
it
more day
tomorrow,
this week.
So I can get it to them before the Thanksgiving holiday.
All right.
So you want it tomorrow?
I want it
Yeah, let's do it
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
I can
Have
get
it.
it.
Okay, that's what we need to hear.
Well, can we just do it tonight after this is over?
After this.
Yeah, so just send it to me, and then I'll compile them, get down with them, and before I leave Wednesday afternoon,
Could we
we'll have
just
it
send
worked
out
out.
these two?
Or at least give them
pick
what
one
they need, so
tonight?
they can figure out which of the three, if all three work, and if,
And we'll look into each one
We
and
just
Right.
pick out
kind of
these
give you 2 options to go from, and then we'll narrow it down from there.
Okay, so
Sounds good.
clarify our go-do with this package again, so I understand this fully. Which ones are we picking
three
from?
different pole options, 3 different fixture options.
3 poles and
Is that
3
correct?
fixtures.
And we understand we're getting, everything else will be the same. No matter which fixture, we'll have banner arms, we'll have outlets, we'll have the flag holders. All those can fit, I think, in theory, on any pole.
Okay, okay, very good.
So I think if everyone's on the same page, we're gonna include the outlets, we'll include banner arms,
Yes.
and we'll include flag
Thank you.
holders.
Yes.
Do you guys have any preference on the direction of the flag pole holders and the banner arms? Because they'll most likely be mounted at the same height.
Would that be,
Traditionally, we've seen, we would like to, I mean, driving through a boulevard, flags are typically oriented towards the road, banners are oriented opposite of that. Because when you're going through, if you have Veterans Day or 4th of July.
Yeah, yeah.
You kind of want the
That, yeah.
canopy.
I'm on board with that.
So we typically do banners because you might have veterans, like
do.
memorial
Yeah.
or just seasonal stuff, and it's kind of the secondary, where the flag is most important, so we want that draping over the roadway.
And that's why you're a
Got it.
professional, thank you.
But
I
you
am-
can't really
'Cause you
see
just
the
created a
banners
visual for me.
As you're
Yeah.
driving, right?
Yeah, you
If they're
will.
not this way, the banner, like if it's this way.
No,
Yeah,
they'll be that.
if it
You can't stare at those banners at 35 miles an hour.
I
I have
can't.
trouble doing them at 25
I know.
on Miami Street.
think it
I
would
just
just
had to
make
stop
people
looking
walk
and get out and
see
walk.
it.
Yeah, you'd be walking the trail,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
primary.
And like looking at it.
But I think when you have a funeral procession, anything like that, I think you want to be under the flags. So you'd want them towards the road, like you were saying, I would think.
Do we have the flags and banners up at the same time?
We don't, but we could.
But you could. In fact, I think we would want to at Memorial Day and Veterans Day and
Yeah.
4th of July.
We'll work out those details if we get these things
And are
installed.
any of us allowed to just defer our votes to
I just said the same thing, yeah.
To what?
Just
divert our votes to you guys' decision?
Wow. I mean,
Or you-
I would
you
feel
ladies
so-
Can we just have this? with the things that he said?
Circle it and send it to
I think that
me.
is the same
I mean, is
as,
that, like, can we make a vote tonight? Or
that's
do we
the
have to-
same
wait a
as
minute,
this
wait a
one, I
minute.
think.
Well, we'll just send over,
she
yeah,
did.
send it over to
Okay.
Jeff, and then he'll compile and
So we do our first, second, third, and send it to Jeff.
okay.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
Okay,
it is.
Any other questions?
That's not in our village.
thank you.
Yep.
Gonna-
Thank you so much for coming in and helping us out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Unless you're not done. If you're not
Well,
done,
I'm just
please continue.
going through, I'm making sure we have everything touched
See,
on.
that's more oriented for a pedestrian, that's not for a highway, and you're sticking out.
Some of these wider ones looks like what you'd have like on a river dock or something, you know, like
Yeah.
you expect to hear a clanging bell with it.
Lighthouse.
And near the back, if you guys look at this sheet, these are the finial options. So, to give you a representation, the finial is this little piece on top. So the pole will come in, this is part of the actual luminaire, and then the top is the finial option. So that's just another aesthetic feature that we would need to decide. We can either have it or not have it. I don't know that anyone really notices it besides myself, but it's something that we would include.
All right.
Okay. Cool.
So we need to pick 3 of those too, right?
Yes.
She goes without saying, when we buy the thing, the street lights or the stoplights, we want them to be consistent with these poles, same stop.
Yeah.
I'm
Nicer black.
I'm thinking as cool as these look, somewhere down the road, we're going to take them all the way out 571 towards,
That would be great.
that. I mean,
That would be great.
depending on funding and when they need to be replaced and all that, but
That could be the standard for the entire village.
Yes, yes, so when we're thinking about this, it's a continuation, in my mind, what we'd want to see throughout one day.
I agree.
And Jeff, to touch on that with the signal, traditionally you have about a 15-foot arm on the signal. So we're most likely not going to be able to have the decorative because there's a lot of limitation on the length of that. So it's going to be probably more, go back to most likely the mono arm, the single pole, that's the cleanest look. But some municipalities still like this.
Even if it's just the powder coated black. as
Yeah,
opposed to the
yeah.
standard.
I think the black looks really nice.
Yep.
Yep.
That's pretty.
Any questions?
Very
Give me
good.
your choices, we'll get it selected and move forward.
Sounds great. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yep, you too.
And if you don't have your votes into Jeff, they just put extra weight on Linnea's choice. So by not voting, you're voting.
We're voting on our paper.
That depends, is once they're done, if you like them. If you like them, then it'll be my choice. If
There
they
you
don't,
go.
then it'll be the next.
All right. Next on the agenda is the regionalization study costs.
Yeah, as council may recall, we've discussed this, and my recollection is that you had given verbal permission to proceed, but we realized we'd not actually passed legislation to formalize that. So at the next council meeting, there will be a resolution to authorize the regionalization study, which I've already started.
Okay.
So we move forward with it, I just need to formalize it.
Okay.
We just got to go backwards to go forward.
A little bit, yes.
Okay, so I have a question with the regionalization study and the cost and what's involved in that. So I thought at one time, when we were talking about this whole I&I process, when this all came up, when Manager Klein was here and Tim Schwartztrauber came and talked to us with Ben and all that type of stuff, that there was some type of regionalization study that was already done previously.
No,
Nothing's,
not that I'm aware of.
okay.
Not at
As I
the
just want to
scale
make sure we
of what
weren't
you're
paying,
talking about.
Clearly not, certainly not the scale and scope that we're doing now. It's all of Union Township now.
okay. So that's the magnitude of this. This is also including Union Township. Is that what you're saying within this?
We're looking at, in theory, being able to provide sewer and water services to at least portions of Union Township. So anywhere there's enough density, for example, to need sewer instead of septics.
And I think part of the thought is, because like, Ludlow Falls, whose sewer was not
Correct.
going to meet EPA guidelines, we're able to tap in and tie into us, and us have the ability to do them. But if we can tap into regionalization funds, it's a different pot of money that could possibly,
Yes, our ultimate goal is to find funding for the new wastewater treatment plant, and regionalization is one of the few triggers left that would open the door to federal funding.
But Scott and Dan, when we were on council before together, didn't we have a large water
water
regionalization-
study. We did
Water study?
we did a big, we paid a
Was that
firm
a
to
group
do
out of
it.
Cincinnati, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken?
but that was just water.
That was looking for the aquifer, I'll bet. That was fish bed.
Well, they were looking at how they would tie in. They'd have to go out Garland Road out to the campground and create a full loop.
Oh,
You know,
right.
it was that study, which
Right.
somebody, since you've been here, has taken that and updated it since then.
We updated the fish spec study. I
Right,
think that's
so
what you're
that's-
referring to.
Yeah.
That's the study that you're thinking of, Scott.
Okay.
And it was just water.
So this is more in-depth, and this is,
This is a roadmap that would show us how, if we were to ever move forward in providing either sewer or water services outside the village, other than Ludlow Falls, how that might work.
okay. Okay.
And most importantly, the county is paying for the water portion, and NVRPC is paying for 22,000 of the 30,000 wastewater. So we're paying 8,000 of the $60,000 study. So we're partner. What's really important is we have partners at the table. It's not just the village. It's the county, it's the village. That will also hopefully help us get funding if and when we have to apply for the dollars to pay for a wastewater treatment plant.
Thank you for that clarification, because I didn't know that portion of it, that it was being split up between those three entities.
I think the other piece is like, we did the water study, but this is like wastewater.
And
So-
water.
And water. It's a
And
mix.
water, yeah, and
Okay.
water, yeah.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
Advanced, yeah.
And so that's what's going to have to also be updated in the budget amendment as well.
No, there's no update to the budget amendment. It's just a resolution that has to be passed.
But that 60,000's the amount at the.
We're only 8,000 on it.
But we're only 8,000 of that.
Right.
Okay. I was just confused because at the bottom of that budget amendment, it has the full 60.
Because she's got a budget for it, because we're paying it, and then it comes back from NVRPC and the county.
Because they reimburse us.
So we're right.
Okay, understand it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like when we did the water, or the wastewater to Ludlow, and we had to like pay out yeah, it was like the in and the out through
Okay.
the budget.
Yep, I remember that.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on that? Next is the 2024 budget amendments.
I think this is just an updated list from Ms. Grice. I hope if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. I don't think it's that much different than the last one we saw.
If we have any other questions, just send it to you
Please.
to direct through her.
Sure, absolutely.
All right. Any other questions on the 2024 budget amendments? All right. Is there any old business?
I have 3 questions with things from old business. We talked about the traffic study. You gave us the other proposal from Broombo Engineering.
Yes.
I think that's still on the table, that we need to decide
It is.
which direction that we're going to move forward with that.
As you may recall, Mr. Herron requested the ability to propose some solutions from his perspective. He's working on those, and we'll present those to you at the January workshop.
Okay?
So an in-house solution.
Correct.
Yeah,
I like in-house.
Same. Like, let's try that first. I'm sure whatever ideas Ben has are good ideas.
I
Try it
agree.
first. If
I
that
agree.
doesn't work, then maybe pursue the study.
I agree.
Okay.
And I'll-
Since Mr. Herron is not here, my other topic was, we have the 2 parking lots that we've been talking about uptown. the one behind the businesses that's in rough shape that we've talked about, some numbers that he got from
Wagner.
possible paving from Wagner that could be worked maybe in this next calendar year. And then the main parking lot, there's some other updates with that as well. So maybe at our next meeting or the workshop, either one.
Probably the January workshop.
Maybe the January workshop, we can talk about that a bit more and go into some more detail with him in reference to that.
Yeah, and as far as the parking lot, I believe our law director found some legislation that might give you the tool to go ahead and make the repairs at the parking lot that have multiple businesses and put that cost on their taxes, similar to what sidewalks. So there is legislation in other municipalities that treats parking lots similar to infrastructure like sidewalks. And I don't want to explain it, she knows it better than I do, but she did some research and found that. Now, you would have to pass that legislation, but it would give you the ability to make those repairs if you're so inclined.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for digging into that. That's great. If you could maybe send us an email or something, or give us some information about that, that would be.
Send it off to you.
Send it to me. I had moved forward with it. I guess I thought I'd put it on the agenda in January, and she can present it to you at that time, and we'll send you documentation in advance.
that's
I can
great.
send you the two that I found.
Yeah.
Great,
Okay.
thank you. Wow, thanks for the work with that. And then the last thing I had, just if there's any updates, and I thought this would probably be a Ben question as well, but he's not here. The grant application that went through to ODOT for the crosswalk, the status for 571, where we're talking about there across Stone Meadows and there on J Street.
I don't want to describe it incorrectly. I think based on the school's lack of interest in participating, he's actually looked at a bigger project that we'd have to apply for that would accomplish multiple crosswalks. But again, that would be on January. I think he's still working on it, but I think he's got a somewhat different proposed solution now than what he previously presented.
Okay, so that grant application that went forward to ODOT, it's kind of like on hold then, I would say.
Yeah, I'll just put it on hold. I don't say, I don't want to misspeak. So look, if you don't mind, let's wait till Ben can tell you exactly what's happened in
Sounds
January, if
perfect.
that's all right.
Yep, nope, I'm good with
Because we
that.
weren't going to be able to do anything right now anyway. It's going to take some time.
Okay. That's the only questions I had on old business.
Anybody else have any old business?
On December 7th, we have the Christmas tree lighting. There's not a parade, and I apologize about the signs. We do not have a parade, but we are having Santa and a choir singing Christmas carols, and there will be hot dogs and popcorn and hot chocolate and coffee and cookies, and all that's free, and a petting zoo, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope I'm not forgetting anything else we have going on. I think that's it. So it's going to be really fun, and it's all it's all free. So at 5:30.
December 7th, right?
Yes, December 7th on Miami Street, downtown.
Excellent. All right. Any other old business? Any new business? Nope.
I want to say downtown looks great. I love the lights. A lot of buildings have painted downtown. It's really looking nice.
It really
People have
is.
put a lot of work into their properties. It's looking really good.
The letters we sent as far as code enforcement did make a difference.
It does look so much better, like you said, down there.
And there's
Yeah,
still
thank
some
you
to
to those
do.
businesses.
There's some that are going to be doing it in the spring. They contacted us and said they couldn't do it yet this fall, but they plan to do it come spring. So they're not done.
It's the old saying with
Paint, $10 in a bucket, $1,000 on the wall.
One thing of new item would be to put an agenda item for December to cancel the workshop in
Yes.
December.
And a new chair.
Man.
I think
Those
All
are
right.
new chairs. What are you doing?
it can be fixed.
Any other new business? All right. Are there any motions for adjournment?
Take that.
I motion we adjourn.
We adjourn also.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
You started this